In this video, I want to cover the latest update for version 5.9.55. There were a couple of small fixes as well as a bunch of new commands and functions added, so let's dive right in. The first issue was regarding drag and drop not working properly in the latest version. This was referring to dragging elements from the browser into the scripting area. So I'm talking about being able to click on something and drag it into the scripting area here like so, or like that. I'm just gonna go to the playground and to the difficult form here. And we can see what this looks like now. So we can click that to go away, and then we can click here and we can see before dragging into the scripting area, it says type text and it drops that type text like so. And we can do that with a bunch of different elements here, like so. So in the past, I've actually been able to crash the browser by using this feature on certain websites. And I've checked so far in this version, replicating that does not crash the browser anymore. I've checked the same sites, I've literally replicated it because I've shot videos for Ubot before demonstrating the issue. And so I've gone through that same process and replicated it, and it doesn't crash the browser anymore. It doesn't make the memory go all crazy or anything. So that's good. And also the responsiveness feels really good as well. I don't actually use this feature myself hardly ever, but I swear it almost feels more responsive than it has in the past. Maybe somebody else who uses that can confirm. So that being said, I've only used this a little bit, and so it's really hard to say, right now how well it really works, but it does feel good. Now that being said, I actually don't really use this myself like I was saying, and I almost suggest not using this feature if you can help it because of the problems it's had in the past. Instead, it's just so much easier in my opinion to, just use something like the type text, use the element selector, click on the element you want. I know it's a nice feature where it seems easier to do it this way, but because of the problems this has had in the past, for me it just seems better to do it this way, where you search for the command you want first and then you use the element selector. Now of course, if you're just starting out, then it's probably going to be easier for you to just click on what element you want and drag it in, because you're probably not sure of what command to use. But once you become more familiar with Ubot and you learn what commands you need to use in which situations, then I recommend just searching for the command first and using the element selector, which is these green brackets here. You can just click on that, choose the element you want. So hopefully this is actually a good update for those who are more comfortable dragging from the browser into the scripting area, and hopefully it works well. So the next update is addressing the issue of playing videos on Facebook as well as Vimeo. And there is an example that they used, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that. It was this specific video. Now, I'm sure it was all Vimeo videos, but right now when you go to Vimeo, it looks like. So Vimeo works. I haven't checked Facebook yet. You needed to be logged in for the example video, and I don't really use Facebook, so not really going to check it. I'm sure everyone else does, so you can see for yourself. So finally, the last bug fix has to do with the way that items were being displayed in the bot bank. When you clicked on one of the sections, all of these would be showing twice. So it would say chart plot, and then it would say chart plot again. And so that has now been fixed so that things are only being showed once. So that's a nice UI change, I guess, but it feels very minor. And that really wraps it up for the bug fixes. All around pretty minor, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Moving on, there are a bunch of new commands and functions in this update for audio as well as images. And these are a nice addition since we already have a bunch of video commands in the bot bank. Having these as well is going to be really good for those who make videos. Now all of these are in the bot bank. All these new commands and functions are under the audio and the image sections in the bot bank. And that means that to have access to them, you need to be subscribed to updates. However, that being said, these commands, along with the video commands as well, by the way, are all using libraries which support command line operations. So that means you can basically do all of these commands on your own by using the shell command. So if you want to be able to do things like crop video or images, crop, resize, create a GIF or GIF or whatever it's called, or convert, and same with video, if you want to flip, rotate, crop, pretty much all of this stuff, and the same goes for audio, you can actually just use the libraries that Ubot was going to use anyway, just by using this shell command. I can't really fully get into it in this video, it'd be way too long, but here's what I will say about it. The video commands are using FFmpeg. It's like a really common video library, probably the most common one, in order to manipulate videos. And you can use this shell command to call the ffmpeg.exe, so you're calling the executable file, and then after you call that file, you can use some command line arguments, and you can look these arguments up online. Whatever question you have, somebody's asked it before, especially about ffmpeg. That's super popular. So you can just Google, how do I flip a video command line ffmpeg? You just link to the executable file and then you put in your arguments. I recommend using a variable to store things like the file paths because it'll make it shorter and just all around easier to work with. So that's ffmpeg for the video. For the image library, you can even see down here it says image magic function, and that's because this is using image magic. Again, it's really popular. There's tons of info and stuff out there. You can download the library and run it via the command line using this shell command. And for the audio, I haven't looked into this too much yet, but it looks like it's using something called lame, which is an encoder in SOX, that's SOX, which is also like either an encoder or converter or something. I really haven't looked into it too much, but if you just look up lame in SOX, then you'll find stuff on it. And again, those also use the command line. So moving on, let's actually talk about the Ubot commands and functions now. So the first thing you need to do when you're working with any of these commands, and this includes the video ones as well, which I won't be talking about in this video, but I will just show you this one thing about it. You need to ensure that you have the libraries, or that your user has the libraries, of course. And so you can use the verify video libraries, audio libraries, and image libraries commands in order to do this. And if you press run, now I should have these, but just in case I don't have all the files or something, I actually don't want to press run. But if you press run and you don't have these, it's going to download them. So it might take a good minute. So keep that in mind when you're making programs for others. You may want to try and package the libraries in an installer or something, or you could just have like a button say click here and alert the user saying, hey, it's downloading the libraries necessary, this is going to take a minute, something like that. Just be aware that you do need these installed. So now there's a lot to cover in regards to the new image and audio commands, and I haven't had enough time to dive deep and test them out yet. The update's only been out for like a day right now, but I can at least show you most of them, and hopefully you can see what's possible and get some ideas from it. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go through. This is the audio commands, and then I have another Ubot open with the video commands. So let's just get rid of this video for now and take a look at this. So what we're going to do is we're going to first create and play a sound. And the way that we're going to do that is by setting some text-to-speech variables here. I'm going to set the file path, and I'm going to set a variable containing what I want it to say. And then we're going to play that text-to-speech directly so you can hear it, and then we're going to save it as a file and then play it. So let's go ahead and do that. And one thing to keep in mind is that when you save the text-to-speech file, it should be in a WAV format. So you can't save this in an MP3, it will just be .mp3.wave. So keep that in mind because it might mess you up the first time you do it.
This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good.
So
this is some TDS. It sounds pretty good.
And that second time it was playing from a file. And so now we've created an audio file so we can start using it in some of these other tabs. So now what I'm going to do is create some silent audio. What we're going to do is create 3 seconds of silent audio and play that. And of course it's not going to sound like anything, but we're just going to play it so you can see that it is playing the file for 3 seconds. Then what we're going to do is take that text-to-speech file we just created, which keep in mind that was a WAV file. We're now going to convert it to MP3. And the MP3 is going to compress it. The WAV is going to be like an uncompressed file, so it's going to be a lot bigger of a file, and that's why you can see in my comment here, notice the file size difference, and I will drag that over so that we can see it. We're also going to convert the silent file from a WAV to an MP3 file as well so that we can use it later because it's a smaller file size. So let's run that. And this is a silent file. You can see that it was running. And we also converted the silent file to an MP3. So we can see here that this is the regular text-to-speech in the WAV format, and it is 700 kilobytes. And we can see that the MP3 version is 66. So that's significantly small. That's like 12 times smaller almost. No, it's like 11 times smaller almost. The silent file is similar to where it is 200, almost 300 kilobytes, and then the compressed version, the MP3 version, is 24. So you can see that there's a significant difference in why you might want to convert it to MP3 before using it. So now we're going to superimpose, which is basically like putting one file on top of the other. So what I'm going to do first is create a superimpose bottom. So this bottom is going to say superimpose bottom, and we're not going to play that, but we are just going to play the normal text to speech that we've already created over this superimpose bottom, which is just going to say that. So it's basically going to sort of layer them one on top of the other. So let's run that.
This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good.
And you can see that they basically both play at the same time. One is on top of the other, and that's basically what that does. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut, and then we're going to adjust the volume, and we're going to be playing a bunch of files in this one. It's just going to play the regular text-to-speech that we created in the first tab there, or here. And then it's going to cut the video, and it's going to play each part. So we're going to say at 2 seconds, I want you to cut the video. Then it'll play the first part, then the second part. It's then going to lower the volume of that original file all the way down to 10%, and then it's going to raise the volume up to 250% so you can hear the difference. So there's going to be a bunch of stuff going on at once, so let's run that.
This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good.
That's the normal file, then it's going to play the cut files.
This is some TDS.
Now a second.
It sounds pretty good.
Then it's going to lower the
this
volume.
This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good. This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good.
The raised volume, so you could definitely hear the difference there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine a bunch of those together. So we're going to take the original and we're going to combine it with the lowered. So the lowered volume one is going to play after the original, and then after both of those, the raised volume one is going to play. Then we're also going to alert the audio length of that entire combined file. So it's going to be all three of them put together. We'll see what the length looks like, and we can also see what the MP3 info looks like.
This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good. This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good. This is some TDS. It sounds pretty good.
So that total file is 12.5 seconds. And there's the metadata. Now this is an MP3 file that we created, so there's basically no metadata, but if you were to go in and manually edit this, you could do that. So that is the combined two. So I could right click, go to properties and details, and now I could start changing things like the year. I could put 2017, album artist, hello insomnia, and so on. You get the idea. And then what we can do is come back over to the MP3 metadata, run that, and now you could see that it has this artist. I don't see the year, I'm not sure why. Haven't really looked into this stuff too much yet, but you can see that some of the metadata at least has been modified and is showing here. So that's gonna do it for the audio part. Now let's look at the image parts. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is make you aware of what image we're working with here. So this is the image that we're going to start off with. It is something I downloaded from Unsplash, and it's just straight from there. You can see it's about 5 megabytes, and it is massive. So it's 3,400 by 5184. And so I've just navigated it to it in the Ubot browser. I'm going to click on its eye, and you can see how far that zooms in. So obviously we're not going to be working with this exact image the whole time. First we're going to modify it, but then we'll be working with the same image, this parrot. So what we're going to do is, well, first you can see zoom in, we've already looked. Now what we're going to do is resize this image so that it's only 500 pixels high, so it's about 1/10 of the size. So let's go ahead and do that. And now we navigate, and I'm clicking on it. We can see that this is now the new size. So we're now going to work with this image because it's much smaller. Now there is also this reduce image quality command, but I'm not really sure if this works or not. So we'll reduce the image quality, and I zoom in, and you can see that it looks the same. And if I go into the reduce quality, it is a smaller file size. However, this is supposed to do more than that. I think it's supposed to reduce the width, the height as well as the resolution. So I'm not really sure if this works or not. The file size is technically smaller, but I think it's supposed to do more than that, so I'm not really sure. Anyways, let's go on to watermarking. So what we're going to do is we're going to watermark an image with some text first. I just wrote the text, then we'll see what that looks like. After that, we're going to create an image from text. So we're going to create an image that just says parrot. We'll look at that. Then we'll make that parrot image word have a transparent background. It's going to have a white background by default, and we're going to make white a transparent color. And so we'll have a look and see what that looks like. Then we'll watermark our little parrot image with that word parrot. And then we're also going to create a caption, which basically allows us to put text on the top and the bottom of the image. And finally, what we're going to do is we're going to add some text to an image, which is going to add text at a specific location. So there's kind of a lot going on here, but that's good because when it comes to putting images on text, you really want as many options as you can get. And so it's nice to know that we have all these different ways of doing it now. So let's see what all that looks like. First, we're going to watermark an image with some text. Now, as you can see, this is fairly basic. We just put some text, and then we can specify the location and the opacity. However, we cannot specify the color. So that's something to keep in mind when you do that. Next, what we're going to do is create an image from some text. So let's see what that looks like. We just wrote the word parrot, and this actually has a white background, by the way. So be aware of that, because the next thing we're going to do is make the white color transparent. And we did, but you can't really tell because, again, we're on a white background, and this has a white, or had a white background. But what we're going to do now is we're going to watermark our parrot image with this image that says parrot that has a white / transparent background. And as you can see, it kind of works, but the white didn't totally go away. You can probably see in the video here that there's definitely some white edges. but it's mostly transparent. Next, what we're going to do is caption an image. So as you can see, I wrote top at the top and bottom at the bottom, and there's some options we'll go over in a second because I want you to see some of the more options with these different things. Finally, there's add text to image. So as you can see here, add text to image as specific location is what I wrote, and I chose an X and Y position. And so that's pretty nice. You can also choose the text color. This is a pretty useful command actually, I think. So caption image, you can choose the font size, but you can't choose the color. You can choose the font family though, and that will basically put it in the top, in the bottom, right in the center. So I think on the Ubot wiki I actually looked at this command and it said something about using it for memes. So if you want to make memes, I guess this is what you could use. You can see Watermark image with image has a location option, and for all these location options, I believe they're all the same. You get the upper right, left, the bottom right, left, and the center, which is of course in the center, both horizontally and vertically. One thing I noticed when you're writing in colors, it looks like you need to write the color with a word like red or white and so on. As it turns out, you can do the HTML color codes. So just keep in mind, you need the hashtag there, write the color code, then click quotes the input so that it doesn't turn into a variable. And if you edit this and hit OK, this will turn into a variable. So it's annoying, but every time you edit this, you'll have to click on the quotes the input, and that should change it back to red, like so. So that's cool to know. All right, moving on, let's do the rotate, flip, get dimensions, and crop. So we're going to rotate the small parrot image 90 degrees. That seems to be working. This actually has some more options here. I haven't messed around with it too much, but I did change them a couple times, and I couldn't get the background color to come through, but if it does come through for some reason, there is a transparent option. But as you could see, even though I'm rotating it, let's change this to like 120 and see if it makes a difference. Oh, that one does make a difference. Okay. So rotating at 90 doesn't, but 120 does. I'm not sure why. Anyway, there is a transparent option. So there you go. And it does look like there's some kind of edge there, but you know, it's pretty good. Now we could look at flip. So I took that original parrot image, flipped it vertically there. Now for the dimensions, basically that's the width, that's the height, and I can show you that in a second. And then based on that, I could keep the width because I knew what the width was, and then I could crop it starting at 0, 0, and then cropping the height basically about in half. So this appears to crop from the bottom left, wherever you're starting the X and Y, but that might be something you want to test out on your own. Obviously, I haven't, fully messed around with all these. There's just so much to go through. One thing I do want to mention about this get image dimensions is that if we just alert what this looks like, notice that it comes through with the width, a space, a colon, and then a space. The height doesn't have a space between the word and the colon. So keep that in mind. If you want to pull these out, you can add them to a list, and then you can split based on, the colon or like a space or whatever. I just used a find regular expression. It just seemed like it was a little easier because they are different. So something to keep in mind. So superimpose, which again means basically like put one on top of the other. We're going to take the original bird, and then we're going to take a watermarked with image, one of the things we watermarked earlier, and we're going to do that, superimpose them. That took a couple seconds because that original image is massive. if I click and zoom in, you can see that it took our little watermarked image here and it put it on top of the big image. Then we can create a thumbnail of this superimposed image, and it just makes a little, like, whatever width and height you want. Now we can create some ASCII art from an image, and I chose the text image, which just says parrot. So if you probably, take a couple steps back, it'll probably become more obvious, but it says parrot. Now I'm gonna run through the filters. They don't all work. Like, they don't even all save. So we're gonna get some errors here, but you can kind of get a rough idea of what some of the filters are like. There's like 5 or 6, I think. So that's one. And on this Kelvin, we get an error, as you can see, and it's not even going to save the image. That one did change though, I think, actually. Maybe, alright, Kelvin does save, apparently. Nash, let me see if this one saves. It doesn't look like Nash saves. So something to keep in mind is Kelvin appears to throw an error, but it does save. Nash just doesn't even save in the first place. So that's the image filters. Now moving on, I'm going to create a GIF or GIF, I forget what it's called. Whichever one it is. The images appear to stack right on top of each other, so you can see what that looks like. If all of your images are the same dimensions, it's not a big deal, but these are all separate images. Like, this background image is separate from the words, which are all separate as well. And so that's what that looks like. One thing I want to mention, the frame rate down here frame rate just means how many frames do you want in a second. So this GIF has 1 image per second. If I were to increase this to, say, a frame rate of 3, then it should play 3 images a second and go faster. So if you want to slow down your image and the rate at which it's going, keep in mind that you can manipulate the frame rate. Raising that will obviously make it faster, and lowering it to, say, 1 will have 1 image per second. And I believe that is it. Or it looks like you can also convert images and edit the metadata, but again, I tried a few different extensions out with this because I noticed that it says JPEG, so I've tried that. I've tried JPG, I've tried PNG just to try it. I can't find the modifications that I make. In this particular case, I say a key that doesn't exist, but I've also tried like resolution and stuff. I don't know, so I'm not really sure if that works or not. But you can convert images, and I believe that one does work. Yeah, so that one at least appears to work. I converted the small image to this .jpeg, and usually if there's something wrong with the formatting, this software, I forget it's called, like IRFanView, something like that. IRFanView. Usually this will tell you if there's something wrong, so it's not popping up anything that's wrong. So that's been a brief rundown of the 5.9.55 update. I showed off most of the commands and functions in this video, but I encourage you to explore these features further. There's quite a lot, especially of new stuff, so hopefully you can find it useful. That's going to do it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.